Welcome to Strategy and Tragedy. If this is your first time tuning in, then welcome. You have absolutely no idea how happy it makes me that you've decided to click on this interview. I'm fully aware of how many podcasts are out there, so it is not lost on me that you're tuning in right now. And if you are tuning back in, then a warm welcome. It is my pleasure to interview my next guest, Trisha Wing, who is the co-founder and CEO of SuLe, which is on a mission to help startups with their legal support. I know many startups who need your help. So Trisha, welcome to Strategy and Tragedy. All right, so give us a little bit of context on your background. I want to make sure that we give some practical advice, some tips to our entrepreneurial listeners before we dive in more into your own incredible entrepreneurial story.
Oh, thank you. We're so glad to be here. It's really nice to be on the show. So I started off my career knowing I wanted to be a lawyer. I always knew that law is a power. It's a power that everyone needs to have and not everyone has it. And managed to kind of land myself in a top law firm, Bird. Realised while I was there that I wanted to go even higher. So I then went into Oric. I was working at Oric and I realised I had this skill that most lawyers don't have. I found it really easy to speak to clients. I found it really easy to bring in deals. And when I was an NQ, which is like level 0 at a law firm, I was bringing in clients to the firm. Realised I wanted to do this bigger and went out and to build the SuLe that I have today.
That is incredible. And we're definitely going to talk about this business development skill that you have, the sales. You're a very natural salesperson, and that's obviously such a crucial skill for any entrepreneur. So we're going to talk about that too. But first of all, what are some of the most common, now that you have SuLe, give us the elevator pitch for what SuLe is exactly, and share some of the most common mistakes that you see early stage founders make.
So 75% of companies in the UK don't get legal support.
Yeah,
that's a fact. It's done by the government.
Yeah,
and the reason for this is time and money. People don't have the time to spend all this on legal, and they don't have the cost to pay for big law firms. What we're doing is building a platform where you can streamline your access to legal. So any area of law that you need help with, you can do for our platform. Because people need help with legal, they don't know where to find it, or they don't have the money to pay for big law firms.
Yeah. So
the cost that you're spending with us, you'll save 70% than when you pay for an actual law firm.
And what do founders actually get through signing up on the platform? Is it pure resources? Is it access to legal advice?
So you get the same quality documents that you would have in working with a law firm, because a little secret into the industry is every law firm gets documents from the same place.
Okay, you heard it here first, guys. Okay. Interesting. So they all come from the same source.
Yeah,
and you get them on SuLe.
Yeah, and so we build a platform where you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
You can access lawyers on demand as well, which is like really unique. Most times people go onto an online site, they download some contracts that mean nothing to their business.
Yeah.
Sign it and then realize down the line they need to change it, and sometimes it's too late.
Yeah.
So what we do is we build a place where you know what you need to do, what are the steps that I have to take to do the right thing. You can build the documents through the platform, and if you need legal help, you can access a lawyer on demand.
Something I want to talk about is in my own experience and from working with lots of incredible entrepreneurs, the whole like getting legal support, it feels like a much more of a protectionist, reactionary step that you take when you need it, right? And it's almost like not taking out insurance.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, oh, we'll be fine. And you kind of go on a hope and a prayer until something does happen. Is that is that a common mistake, and how important is it for entrepreneurs to maybe start getting on the front foot with that, as opposed to coming and looking for help when it's too late?
You hit the nail on the head there. And the reason for that is because founders don't know what they need to do. It's like a minefield. No one knows what they have to do to make sure they're not making mistakes down the line.
Okay.
And that's kind of a real big theme that we see with founders. It's like, okay, I know I need to raise money. I don't know how I do it. I don't know what I need to do beforehand. Like, it's such a minefield out there. And often you would pay a law firm to help you navigate this, but no one has 20K to drop down to get access to that. And that's a big problem.
Especially while you are fundraising to get the cash to do it in the first place.
Exactly.
So is that one of the most common areas that you see founders needing legal advice with, the fundraise?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
How do you get investment ready? Like, we do a lot around this,
Okay,
what do you need to do to get investment ready? Because working at top law firms, you see this roadmap, you see the expertise that goes into understanding what companies need to get investment ready. So we built like a whole checklist on like fully, you can navigate it online on our platform.
Nice.
What do you need to do to get investment ready?
Okay, can you share like top 3 tips?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not expecting the full checklist. You can go to SuLe.com if that's the URL. We'll pop it in the show notes. But if you can give us like some of the most valuable, best tips here now.
So they're key three areas that from the legal side that investors would care about is IP, like your most valuable asset as a tech company usually is your IP.
That stands for intellectual property, by the way, in case anyone
Exactly. Intellectual property, we'll touch on that in a second.
Can you give us examples of IP just in case?
Yeah, exactly.
The very early stage.
Nike, everyone knows Nike, the brand. Nike, the name is their brand. The tick is a logo. Just do it is a saying, and they will probably have built a platform or an application. They'll have loads of IP in the application, how they use it. Anything that makes your company more valuable potentially is IP. If you've drafted a article online, that's your IP. If any software you're building is your IP. The AirPods case, like when they open it and close it, like magnetic connection, like there's so much in IP.
That's interesting.
A really cool one, like the foldable plugs. They built that foldable extension on the plug where you can fold it and put it in your bag. There's IP in that.
Wow.
Basically, any cool innovation that we're building today is included in the IP. And when you're speaking to investors, what they want to know is what is the valuable asset in your business. Intellectual property is what it says, intellectual. You can't touch it. It's of the mind. It's a creation of the mind. And whereas property, you can feel it. It is. You can touch it basically. And then the second area is, so you have IP. What is your most valuable asset in your business? And then you have like the ownership of your company. So this can fall into, do you own the shares in your company? We did a study and 65% of companies didn't own the shares, because people think when you first start your company, you go in company's house, you create your company, you own the company. That's not true. Company's house is a registrar.
Newsflash. What?
Yeah, it's a registrar. It's where you go to like publicly display what your company does.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. What? So because you're but if you're the only director of the company, so who owns the shares?
Well, yeah, but the argument is that, there's less risk there. So
Yeah,
it's all a level of risk.
Yeah.
If you're the only director, you say you're the only shareholder, who's going to dispute you?
Yeah.
If you have multiple shareholders and you haven't done it the right way,
that's what you need.
Yeah, then it's a higher risk. So how do you prove ownership of shares in a company? Well, you have to have a share register. That's not a company's house. It should be separate. And then you have to have share certificates where you can prove I own these shares.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's when you update the registrar and stuff like that. Wow. So actually having ownership of your company is an important one, and lots of people don't.
Wow.
And then you can extend that further and think about, okay, who owns the company? So your co-founder relationship, the amount of founders that break up. Each week we get a new co-founder breakup relationship.
Wow, really?
Every week we have one now. And any lawyer you speak to will say the same thing.
And on that note, because that's just super interesting, what's the most common reason? Or do they tell you? Do you find out?
Yes, I would say the most common reason is not setting the terms of relationship up front. It's like a marriage, right? If you haven't had that difficult discussion about what are your values, are our values aligned? Are we both expecting the same thing? Or do you both have the same aligned interests? Then if you don't have that conversation, it goes wrong often.
Given the frequency of seeing co-founder breakups, at least weekly at the moment, is there any correlation at all to how they came about forming in the first place? So for example, where I'm coming from is I'm really fascinated in co-founder pairings. And what I noticed years ago was the best co-founder relationships, I'm really interested in how they first met. So they either first met at uni and hilariously at Freshers Week. So they just bonded through alcohol in their first week of uni when they were 18, which there is something in that. As much as that makes me laugh, there's something in that connection that bonding that's happened at that point, right? And what you go through in those uni years and everything else. If it's not that, it's then you have worked together in another place. So of course that's super logical, is we've both actually had this working relationship. So that's kind of where I'm coming from a bit with that question, is is there any correlation at all to how those co-founders met, or anything else with that relationship that's led to that breakup?
So often co-founders will meet. We often find they meet in some kind of accelerator, like an ADA.
Yes, this is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, an ADA type situation. Yeah. And that often can work well. Now, the more co-founders you have, the higher the chance someone's going to leave. That's just a fact. It's just it's a statistical fact.
Okay. Is there a dangerous number? Do you know?
No, there's not. I think it's hard to predict like completely predict, and it's hard to completely manage, but you have to just try your best.
Yeah.
If there's two of you, I think you can better try and manage the breakout, it not happening. But when there's 3 or 4, there's a chance someone will leave, and you just need to better protect yourself beforehand.
Yeah.
That's kind of the key thing.
Well, just on that note, sorry, I'm getting excited here. One of the other amazing interviews, I'm not sure if this is already out, if it's coming out, I'll mention it anyway, is with Anna-Sophie Hartvigsen, who was one of the 3 co-founders of Female Invest. And today they are now the best funded startup led by an all-female team, which is incredible. They've fundraised a total, I think, like $24 million, like absolutely amazing. And we had a quick discussion on that as well, because there's 3 of them. And I was kind of like, oh, it's kind of rare. Like usually you do get those pairings, as you say. And I mean, obviously for them, like it works magnificently. This is, you know, just one particular successful case study. But her argument was like, you have a bit of that tripod effect. And it does kind of help if there is kind of like, you are at loggerheads and there's another person to maybe, you know, if there's 2 against 1 instead of 1 against 1 kind of coming up. So pros and cons. Quick one. So sorry to interrupt. I'm sure that you are on the edge of your seat listening to this interview. At least I hope so. I'm so aware of all the other podcasts that are already out there. So the fact that you've decided to tune in and listen to this one is not lost on me. If you can just go that one step further and hit that follow or subscribe button, doesn't cost a thing. It takes 2 seconds. Now is your chance to do that. It means so much. Really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the interview. If there is kind of like, you are at loggerheads and there's another person to maybe, you know, if there's 2 against 1 instead of 1 against 1 kind of coming up. So pros and cons.
That's very true.
Yeah.
But some of the issues when there's just 2 of you is what happens when you both just disagree.
Right.
You know, does one person override the other?
Yeah.
Are they equal shareholders?
Yeah.
Or is it different?
Yeah.
And what's the dynamic there? If there's 3, it does make a more democratic decision-making process. And actually, that's why when you'll grow your company through seed, Series A, you'll have more board members for this exact reason. You'll want to have more people on the board, so it's not like always at crosshead. Yeah.
It doesn't always need to come from the co-founder, does it? And
no, it doesn't. Yeah.
The other way round as well, there's another interesting argument on it being a solo founder. Like I was with my last business. I honestly, maybe I was lucky, but like I was never lonely. Like we talk a lot about like being lonely when and I was like, no, I had my team and and a coach and you know, these other kind of, whether it is board advisors, consultants, whatever, like these other people that can come in and support you. It doesn't need to be co-founder.
It's a good point. I think everyone, and this is another VC issue.
Yeah, exactly.
The VCs push, you have to have a co-founder.
Exactly.
If you're not technical, you need to get someone technical.
Yeah.
And it's a real risk because I've spoken to like thousands of companies over the course of starting this business, like thousands.
Yeah.
And what you see is people come and they say, I need to find a co-founder. I need to get a co-founder agreement. Okay, but why do you need to?
It's this external pressure that's come from somewhere else.
It's external pressure. And I would say, I would not have a co-founder if I didn't meet my co-founder. She was like the right fit. If she was man, we'd be married. Like this is a fact. 100%. Like
so I was going to take this opportunity on the co-founder thing. We will go back to like the most common mistakes. We will get back to the legal advice because that's all such amazing tips you've already started sharing with the listeners. But given we're on the co-founder conversation, I was going to ask you about that. Where you've got a co-founder, what's the share split, if you don't mind?
Yes, I have a greater share split than her.
Yeah.
I think that does make a difference.
Yeah.
Because when I first started the business, I put my whole life savings into the business.
Wow.
Every penny I have to my name has gone in.
Wow.
Which is why I had to like rent out my apartment and like I risk everything for this business. And before I ever took any investor money, that was like my commitment.
Yeah.
I'd already built a product, already had revenue. So it was a different dynamic.
Does make sense.
And when you're first starting your company, if you're both starting at the same time
Yeah.
and you're both risking everything together, it's a very different conversation.
100%.
And we have like such good mutual respect. And so, you know, there's no conflict in our role. You know, she knows I'm CEO, I know she's head of product. And so we both respect each other's experience and expertise.
Yeah.
And that is really important because I know a lot of people, they're fighting for the same position.
Yeah.
They haven't had that clear conversation saying one person is CEO, one person is COO.
Yeah.
Like, they haven't had that discussion and they overlap on each other's areas.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it can get dangerous. And, you know, I've done it before where I try to get too involved in a product and I'm like, hey, this isn't what I'm best at. You know, this is what I do best.
Yeah.
I should hand it over to someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And I think ego comes into that equation as well, right? So if you can put your ego to one side, and this is a really, really interesting dynamic actually, because I've rarely met someone who's taken that plunge themselves and then brought in the co-founder afterwards and been successful at it, most crucially. So how did you meet your co-founder?
She's our client.
Oh yeah, you said okay, yeah. So it's kind of the work connection here.
Yeah, there's a work. She
Yeah.
really respected, like she said, I believed in you as a CEO from the moment I met you. Like
Oh.
she's like, I saw you and I was like, I want to be led by this person. I've always been a leader. Like sometimes I like try to shy away from it, but actually, even as my sister says to me, you're born to do this. Like I was born to be a leader.
Amazing.
And she met me, she said, I trusted you and I wanted to follow you as a leader. And that's how our relationship started. But it started as friends and then advisory, and then it kind of worked out at the right time of her company, and then she was leaving, and it just all happened like in a really perfect way. But we're very different, but it's like a very beautiful collaboration. Like, so I'm an extrovert. It's funny at parties, at networking events, I'll be there just like and then she'll like be in like sitting down like watching me. It's like a really funny dynamic. But
Proper yin and yang.
yin and yang, yeah. And it works beautifully, and I'm not shy to talk about her and how amazing she is. So.
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. And the first question on the co-founder conversation here around like that share split is always interesting as well, right? Because of that power dynamic.
Yeah.
Even, I've met some co-founders, two of them, where even like 51-49, that 1% is that I think psychologically I've definitely met some co-founders where it's like, that's always in the back of my mind. I know that if we do come up against some sort of disagreement, ultimately but I know that you can be creative with that as well, right? Because you can have
documents, you can have founder consent, so you both have to agree to things.
There's consent, but there's also different. So you've got like how many shares you own in the company, but then you've also got like voting rights.
Yeah, so there's a difference between being a shareholder and being a director. So director is about, they govern the day-to-day running of the business. So if we're making day-to-day decisions, you both have a vote, you both decide on what happens. However, there isn't this overarching shareholder position. But if you've got 49-51, then there's not much that can get through without you saying so. So it's better. But hey, as soon as you bring on an investor, this whole dynamic changes. It only is so important before you bring on investors. As soon as you bring on investors, like the dynamic starts, especially VC investors, the dynamic starts to change a lot.
In terms of like voting rights.
In terms of any big decisions you make, investors, especially as you grow in funding rounds, will want to have decision have kind of all over what you do, basically. You have to get their consent before doing certain things.
So I think it's really worth spending a bit of time talking about what's normal and what isn't, because I've had some incredible entrepreneurs who maybe like they're further along in their journey or they're now serial entrepreneurs, but they reflect on the show here about lessons learned and passing on that wisdom and advice to earlier stage founders, and some of them talk about stuff like this. So
I love talking about this stuff because I have met so many founders who have just got into a lot of trouble and, have parts of their business. And as soon as you go down that road, it's quite hard to reverse it.
Yeah.
So there's certain decisions you make, and we'll go into that in a second, about once you do make the decisions, you can't take it back.
Yeah.
One thing I would say is anyone looking to fundraise, you have to think of your fundraising journey as whatever the tone you set from the beginning sets out the rest of the journey. So if you're giving away so much and you're easily kind of negotiated out and things like that, the next people coming in, it'll just get worse and worse and worse. So the starting point is really important. That's the first thing to say. So if you're doing like an angel funding round, angels shouldn't have board seats. Okay, they shouldn't have any special powers over the business. They're angel investors. They usually have SEAS in the UK, which is like really attractive tax relief. And it means that actually if the maximum loss, I think if you invest 25k, it's like 8k or something like that if the company goes down. So it's a super attractive investment for them.
Amazing.
Which is why they don't usually get a lot of rights. So they just invest into the business. Now, as you go throughout your funding round, seed, still avoid giving board seats because you should only give them really in Series A plus. Too many cooks, spoil the broth, as is a true saying, and it is accurate. Without going too technical, there are certain terms that you should just avoid, and these are the legal terms. You just have to know them, and I don't try to say anything otherwise because it's what will be in your term sheet. So if you have a term sheet and it says the investor's asking for something called anti-dilution rights, in the early stages you avoid this because what it basically means is that investor wants to keep their shareholding throughout investment rounds. This just affects you as a founder. So if you see anti-dilution rights, speak to a lawyer, remove it, take it out in the early stages. There's another thing called liquidation preferences. anything other than a one times non-participating, that's how it's written. It's the term.
What was it after one time?
One times non-participating preference.
Non-participating preference.
Yeah.
Okay.
One times non-participating preference. Anything other than that is like a massive no-go. What it means is if like the company doesn't go as planned, that investor gets 1 times their money back, or 2 times, or 3 times. Now you see in the news where you have these amazing founders who have built these amazing companies, and then you see how much they took home, and it's like it's so much smaller than anyone would have expected. It's because of this. This is a big reason why it's the participating preferences.
Wow.
And so yeah, just avoid that if you can.
So break down, like, how can that situation play out if, so instead of the 1 times non-participant,
It's a mouthful, but it's just what it's called.
This is a masterclass for me as much as it is for anyone listening in. So is it possible you can have 2 times, 3 times? It could say that.
Yeah.
So if it does say anything other than 1 times, how does that play out then? Do they get double, triple?
Yeah, it's almost
their
investment. So if you exit for 1 million and the investor invested 500,000, and they have 2 times non-participating preference, they get the whole exit proceeds. So they get the whole amount. You end up with 0 in that scenario. There's another one called participating preference. You should avoid that really as well. It's just not market standard. There's some good resources out there that tell you what market standard is. I'll send you the links after, you can share with the group. But HSBC have like this term sheet tracker where it tells you what market standard is and what isn't.
That's great.
And so you can, if someone's asking for anti-dilution rights, you can say, this isn't market standard, I'm in pre-seed.
Nice. Do you know what's so incredibly helpful about that, Trish? Is like sometimes it's just, especially if like you're going through this for the first time and you're feeling a bit out of your depth, and on top of that you've got this power dynamic dealing with it, like there's a lot, you've got all of this, which can psychologically make anyone feel like they are the smallest person in the room.
So true.
And so having specific phrasings, I think, is so incredibly helpful, and having that to pull out of your back pocket. So literally what you just said there, of being able to turn around if you do see anything like that, to say, this isn't market standard.
That sentence exactly.
Right.
You can even go even further. And that's why I don't dumb down legal terms. Because sometimes people rephrase terms into things they're not. And so if you're speaking to a VC and you do rephrase them, they know that you're not educated on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how they take advantage. So I do so many masterclasses and I say to people, this is what the document is called. This is a terminology. I can explain what it means, but you need to use the terminology because it makes you look like you know what you're doing. And people can smell that.
And that as the added advantage, exactly what I was going to say, is like, one was just kind of like not having a default and being able to kind of, but then of course actually the professional terminology as well, to kind of get a bit more respect
you
from
can
them.
smell it. I you know, I've worked with the best lawyers in the city, and the one thing you should know about lawyers is they are full of themselves because they're smart people and they get paid a lot of money. And so when you're on the other side of, they can smell when someone, you know, isn't like that. And the VCs have been around lawyers for so long that basically like them as well. So they know when someone is inexperienced. And so if you start saying things like, this is not a market standard in accordance with the BVCA, they'll be like, they'll be like, okay, this person knows what they're doing. Yeah, they're like, okay, she knows what she's doing. We can't question her. So
nice. No, I'm so thankful you've shared even just that with the listeners. I really hope that helps. And I think also just want to underscore, for anyone going through a fundraise for the very first time, either in general or with your business, the level of importance on that, on those terms, on your attitude, on everything you do, not to overload, you know, too much undue pressure, but get that right. It really is that first fundraise that really matters, because this is also, especially if you go on the VC hamster wheel, I mean, you're looking at a timeline of a decade, right? So whatever you do today really is kind of setting those foundations and the tone, as you said, for the next however many years.
100%. And it starts with your term sheet. So the really important thing, just to kind of to close on the funding point, a term sheet, I'm sure everyone knows what a term sheet is, but if you don't, it's what your investor will usually provide is it sets out kind of the rules of what the big documents will be. It's like a prequel. Term sheets are not legally binding, but they're, except a few clauses like confidentiality, but they have this binding nature, which means that if you agree to it, you can't then back down. It's like saying to your teacher, I'm going to do this, and you don't. It's like, well, you said you would. And that's the really important thing of a term sheet. Founders usually just sign it because again, it's like a scarcity mindset where
Yeah.
funding's not going so well, everyone's struggling, all your friends, companies are closing. You get one VC who's offering you 500K, and you're like, I can't. And I get founders say to me, I can't negotiate, because they'll say they have loads of people they're investing. This is a mindset thing. This mindset is people get taken advantage of. One of the things that I always say to founders when I'm doing these webinars is, we are in a really difficult time, but if you make like desperate decisions, your results will they'll end up being very bad for you.
Trish, oh my God, everything that you're saying is like music to my ears as well. I'm so happy that you bring up this point too, because I think such an important lesson that I've definitely had myself and seen through others in entrepreneurship is that perspective. And I think that when you are under so much pressure, you can't see the wood for the trees, you're conscious of your runway, of your team if you have hired, there's all of these, the list goes on and on and on, right, of the amount of aspects that can put you under that pressure. And so exactly to your point, when you've got that offer on the table, take a beat, take a moment, use our conversation now and you listening in as that reminder, or try and remember this when you are in that moment. Take a beat, take a step back, get a bit of perspective. It's like in sales, we're going to talk about sales, but it is like in sales, what I've also learned the hard way is like when you're put under pressure by a salesperson, like never. One of my worst decisions was folding to like a salesperson putting me under pressure. It's like, no, like I know tomorrow isn't guaranteed, but like tomorrow's probably going to come around, right? So it's like, you do have 24 hours, you do have 40, you do have a weekend, like take a beat, because again, that perspective is the key word. That's going to lay those foundations for so many more years to come. So I love that on the mindset. Any other tips on the mindset side of things? Because obviously that is key.
Yeah. So there is a difference I noticed between men and women when it comes to this.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
There really is. And, and one of the big things I would say, I do have this benefit. I've always been very confident naturally. I don't know where it comes from. I've always had this benefit. And it does make a difference even if you just like have like an alternate ego, become confident.
Sasha Fierce.
Like, just you have to be confident, because if you go into these meetings and, someone across the line is about to offer you £1 million and they can smell it if you don't have it. I would say that's a big thing. When you feel founders are not confident in themselves, they don't believe in what they're building. Hence why I invest my life savings. I believe in this. This is not going to succeed because I'll make sure it happens.
And that comes through, definitely.
It does come through. So I would say mindset is really important in building a business. Like, train your mindset, get a coach, like read more books, understand how you can improve and expand it so you come across stronger.
Who knew a chinwag about legal advice would quickly evolve into like mindset and confidence? I'm so here for it. I absolutely love that. But it is super important. I'm really glad that you mentioned that. The analogy of sharks smelling the blood in the water comes to mind as I'm listening to you there.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like being able to whiff it out. So yeah, I love your tip as well, even on like the alter ego. Like even if you just, for the sake of the pitch, the presentation, going into the meeting, whatever it is, you can kind of turn into a puddle afterwards if you need to, but do what you need to in that moment for that hour, however long it is, to bring that confidence to the table.
Bring A game.
What's the big difference you see then with the men and women? Just the confidence, or
confidence? Yeah, like men don't have to have everything perfect; they just do it. Women have to be perfect before they can move forward.
I see it all the time.
One of my
all the time
big sayings is, ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah, same.
I'm not going to like, is it okay if I do this, or can I do this? Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize I could do that. What can we do about it?
I feel like we have a lot in common, Trish. A lot in common. I completely agree. I see that come through all different walks of life as well, all the time. And I think, I think it is also important. I obviously can't let this topic slide because I feel very passionately about it, but it is important. And I think what's worth also just discussing for a sec is the individual versus the system. So I would love to get your thoughts on that difference between, from your perspective of like seeing the women lack the confidence, but how much of that is themselves versus the system, because finance, legal, all of this is so male dominated.
It is. I have like a different view on that, because I guess I came from a place where I shouldn't have succeeded. Everything was against me, but I never thought of it like that. And so whenever I'm around women, I say we have to believe we belong there.
Yeah.
We have to like believe that we're already there.
Yeah.
You know, and anytime you walk into a room with people, everyone feels like, you know, an intruder, like I don't belong here. But we have to believe we should be there.
Yeah.
But there's a thing that with women that we struggle with that. And I think it's probably like comes from years and years of oppression, right? Where we haven't ever felt like we haven't actually legally belonged there. Some cases like not have to vote and things like that.
Yeah.
But I do see the system change, and I think there's like there's funding issues, women lacking funding. Like if you build a health tech or fintech product and you give it to a VC, like a founder that I was speaking to is building this really cool like femtech product around like sanitary towels, things like that, being like completely organic, and she's doing really well, like thousands of users. Wow. And the VC investor was like, oh, it's just not a big enough market.
Oh, fuck off.
And then you just like, okay, well,
right off.
Then you don't
I hear this all the time.
Every woman has the same issue, but it's not a big enough market.
On that, I have to say this. I was at South by Southwest last week, and
nice.
This won't be coming out for a while. So I know that when it gets released, it's going to feel like ages ago. But one of the panels that I went along to watch was with Debbie Raskow, who was one of the co-founders of Albright.
Yeah.
And incredible, like, advocate for like funding women, female founders, and she led the Invest in Women task force with the government that's now released. Is it like £200 million into like the fund of funds for female LPs and investors to go into women? And on the panel, she's also now she's a serial entrepreneur, so she has all these other amazing businesses, and one of the businesses she's working on now is menopause related.
Yeah.
And the difference is, with this story that you recount, like, this is Debbie Raskow. Like, she's a fucking household brand name. Like, she's got such an incredible, like, impeccable track record. She has succeeded. I think she said she's got maybe 2 or 3 exits under her belt, something like that. She's like tried and tested, proven, bulletproof, battle-tested founder. Not female founder.
Exactly.
And she got the same comment from an investor. It was like, oh, menopause, it's a bit niche, isn't it? And the thing is, what came to my story, I'm talking a lot because you're into this is getting me all really worked up, is what came to mind is I remember I hosted an International Women's Day panel years ago, and I had Dipali Nangia on the panel. She's a female angel investor. And she used the example, I remember, and you know, this was like in 2020, this was just before lockdown. And I still remember to this day, like, this just goes to show, like 5.5 years later, she said again with these same similar comments, and she asked the audience, she was like, what about blockchain? What about crypto? What about deep tech, med tech, fintech? Like, the list goes on and on and on of all of these fairly niche, like, deep topics. You as like, you go away and you do your research. You don't go and ask your wife or ask your girlfriend. So anyway, this pisses me off so much.
But I think though, as women, it's not fair. It's not fair. It isn't. It's all against us. You know, every odd is against us. But there's an element of, if I walk into a room full of men, I stand out.
Yeah.
And there's an advantage to that.
Totally with you.
I think we have to have this mindset. Otherwise,
100%.
we're not going to be able to move forward. It's not fair for us.
I'm so with you.
But one thing I would love to see more is more women supporting women.
Yeah.
Like, if a female founder comes to me and they need help, I'm more likely to support them because they're a female founder and you want to encourage. But I would love to see more of that in the industry, like more women supporting women. I'm
1000% with you. And again, I was at an event where this woman raised her hand in the Q&A, and she went on with this narrative, like, because I'm a woman in business, and whatever her business was, she was like, I'm often the only woman in the room. And it's like, and that's a good thing. And like, how
we have to change the narrative.
We have to change the narrative. And it's like, what do you then do with that? How helpful is it? And the very last thing I'm going to say on this is, I did an interview ages ago with Emmy Faust of Female Founders.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And she really sort of lit a bulb in my mind as well when she said, like, we know all these stats. We know only 2% of all UK VC goes to female founders. Even worse for, obviously, if you come from an ethnic minority, like, obviously. But her point was, how helpful is that? And I think to your point on women walking into rooms and feeling that imposter syndrome, it's all of these, it's one thing to be aware of how dire the inequality is, but it's another thing how much we're internalizing that.
Yeah, this is the big thing.
This is the big thing, right?
Yeah.
This is what I'm getting to, is like, if we keep repeating these same stats, how many women are going to be put off going into business or going and trying to fundraise?
What you say you become.
100%.
And so if I'm always saying, oh, I can't public speak, I can't be a good CEO, I'm not going to be a good CEO. I'm not going to be a public speaker. And this is what men are really good at. They just say it, even if they're not it.
Whether you think you can or you can't.
You're right.
You're right.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right. You could waffle on that. This is so much longer. This could definitely be the whole podcast. But let's get it back on track. Hopefully, we haven't lost our male listeners. We love you too.
So some of my best advisors and investors are male.
Yeah.
In fact, we have more male investors than female investors. And they are thanks to our investors, they are incredible. So
of course,
you they are out there. You have to find them.
And I do always hope that if there are any male listeners, that you're still with us now, because I think you need to kind of get that front row seat into a bit of what this looks like. All right, so let's get back on track. I need to calm down for the sake of my blood pressure.
It's good. It's good. We've got to have the passion.
I need to get my blood pressure back down. So let's go back to those common founder traps.
Yes.
So I wanted to just sort of summarize what you listed out much earlier.
Yeah.
So you got the IP protection we talked about. So whether it's your idea, your brand assets, your invention, something you've created, get that protected.
Just to come on to that. So the IP protection. So understand, what is it that I need to protect?
Mm-hmm.
If you're Nike, brand is a big part of what they do, but there'll be a lot of innovation in their shoes, in their clothes, the designs around that. Understand what it is that makes your business valuable.
What I was going to dig into on that, I know that I keep wanting to deep dive into all these different things, was the tension. I'm just acutely aware of early stage founders kind of listening to this, is the tension point between protecting, getting an IP, protecting some sort of asset, versus overlooking that in order to get that product market fit first. Because I think, to your earlier points on the time and money that would go into seeking that legal advice and the cost, whatever the cost is, if you're cash strapped, there is still cost and time that would go into protecting something.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, you obviously will think it's super valuable, but it's the market that will tell you how valuable it is.
It's a very good point. And not all IP you need to protect straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you are right that, if you, for example, you've just created your company name, your company logo, it may not even be one you're going to keep. You maybe changed it. You may not be completely sure. Investors usually decide this for you. So often when you're going to raise money, there's certain things you can't move forward unless you have it.
Oh.
So if, for example, you're building an amazing, bio company where you're finding the cure for cancer, there's certain IP that you have to have protected, otherwise you can't ever raise money. Okay, you're going to have to look into that. If you're a software company, you don't usually need to patent your software. Not usually required.
Mm-hmm.
Now there'll be loads of IP around other things you're creating. The key thing for you to do, and this isn't so time consuming and expensive, is to make sure you own it. So there's three things to break down. So you have, what is my IP? What is it that's valuable? Do I own it? And how do I protect it? Those are the three things that I say to the founders. Understand what it is. Do you own it? How do you ensure you own it? So if you're hiring a bunch of freelancers to do different things in your business, if you're hiring a developer in Turkey, all on consultant freelance contracts, are very big in this industry, you don't own the IP, they do. That's what English law says.
Even if you're the client and you've paid for it and there's been a transaction, no, because they've created it.
Yeah. So how do you get around? How do you not get around? How do you change that? They have to contractually assign it to the company, not to you as a founder. That is often more important at the early stages than some IP protection. Yeah. Because if you don't own it, then investors say, well, why would I invest in a company you don't own the IP for?
Yeah.
So the typical thing you do is you do IP assignment agreement with those people. Yeah. Sometimes people rely on the clauses in contracts. If a lawyer hasn't drafted it, if you're not sure, I personally wouldn't ever risk ownership of my IP in my company because I believe we're going to be very successful. Yeah, of course. And so I wouldn't risk it. So I always do IP assignment agreements with people.
And you actually have made me remember with my last business, which was marketing consultancy, the agreements that we had drawn up was the client had the IP. And I was always very happy with that, because it's we're here to help you. It's your business. You're paying us. We're getting that financial gain off the back of it. But yeah, watch out for it. Anything else on IP, or shall we summarize the other points?
No, yeah.
Okay.
Good, yeah.
So there's IP was the first one you said. There was the whole kind of share ownership was the second one. And then we got onto co-founders and stuff, which was super interesting. Third one
is around the investment process, I'd say, being kind of the top things people going to get wrong. And we've covered a lot of the
Okay,
investment stuff,
yeah.
but just summarize, when you get a term sheet through, the best thing is just to get someone to look at it. Don't rely on like doing it yourself. And the risk is so high. Legal is all about risk. Some things in your business are not that risky. It's like, okay, if I haven't trademarked my logo right now, I'm not going to die. Like, the company's going to be fine. Some things are more risky. So if you go forward a term sheet and you get 500k investment and you give away your rights, that is way more riskier than other things. So I say, kind of be careful with that.
Yeah, okay. Trish, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing such valuable advice and practical tips. As I said, I've definitely been learning and like taking mental notes while I'm listening to you as well. I did want to touch at least a little bit more on your own entrepreneurial story, because it is so fascinating. We already talked about, first of all, you identifying the problem, noticing that you had such a natural skill when it came to selling, business development, which we all need. And then one thing I've got so many things I want to ask you, but at least one thing with your entrepreneurial journey, you did also mention about being a non-technical founder and obviously building a tech sort of startup. You mentioned previously, before we started recording, around something sort of failing on the technical side or kind of outsourcing that. How much of that are you okay to share? And crucially, the key lessons, because I know so many others who have fallen into the same trap.
Yeah, 100%. Technical side is like my weakest point, and that's like the fact. There's a lot of training I have to do myself, but it's about finding my co-founder changed the whole game. I tell her this every day, like finding someone who understands tech language and can communicate with me and the tech team, having that kind of mutual communication was vital for our business.
So how far into your business journey were you before you brought in your co-founder?
Over a year. So we definitely made mistakes in the beginning. Like, we made mistakes for sure. One of the big things is just, hiring engineers and then asking them to like do what your vision is. That didn't work, because engineers are doers. They can make things beautiful, but they need someone to do the painting, which they can then like make into reality. So you need that communicator between, and that's usually a product person. Also, we kind of use lots of agencies in the beginning, and like things were ad hoc, and you need someone in-house that can learn and iterate and build and speak to customers. And you probably heard it so many times, but the number one thing is to learn from your customers and to build as little as possible. So every building decision you make needs to be justified from customer feedback. And I know this, and we still haven't got it perfect. I think we've got it a lot better than maybe other founders have, but definitely made some mistakes in building what I thought was beautiful.
Everyone falls into
you
this. Everyone. And I think, there's a lot of like the first business or the first iteration of the business just kind of being like that first pancake. And I'm like, you got to itch that scratch. You've got to get it out the way a lot of the time. And just another interview that does come to mind is I had Thomas Panton come back on the show. He was one of the very first guests that I interviewed 2 years ago, and his business failed. And so it was a really interesting like post-mortem, and that was one of the key things. He was going deeper on, because he's a super smart, incredible, like shit hot entrepreneur. I think he's amazing. And what he had the self-awareness to acknowledge was they did know. He was like, deep down inside, we knew that. And it's one of those things where it's like, people listening now might be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And maybe if you are building a business, you're like, yeah, we're doing that. But like, if you're really, really honest with yourself, when you're lying in bed at night, are you actually building it for your customers, or are you doing it for yourself?
A tip I say to founders, is a tip that was given to me. I can't remember who gave it to me, but I'll recycle it. Is speak to your best customers that you have, the best, the best defined by revenue, but also by how happy they are and how happy they make you. It's like a relationship you have. Ask them, how do you see me? How do you see SuLe? And what they say to you is what you are, and it's why they came to work with you. Like, you shouldn't be trying to put out to the market like what you believe you are and what you want to be, because it's all ego. You need to ask your customers, like, if you could describe me in one sentence, what would you describe SuLe as?
Amazing.
And what they say to you is then everything should be built around that. Okay, so our best customers describe us in this way. This is what we should be running with, because they don't care about all those features we built. They care about this core product. And that has really changed things, definitely.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Because they see the value. They see the real value that they're paying for.
In a certain area of your product. So there'll be parts of your product, apart from your business, that they don't care about. Because it's not why they came for you. You might care about it, but they don't. And so what they will say is a part they do care about and why they pay you for it. And that's what you should be looking at.
One of the most famous examples of that, apologies if a lot of the like entrepreneurial geeks already know this, but that's how Slack came about.
Exactly.
You knew that
Yeah,
one
yeah,
already,
yeah.
exactly. So for those of you who didn't, just really quickly, started off as a video game.
Yeah.
And the developers needed a way to communicate amongst each other. And so Slack was born. It was born off the back of this video game. What happened with the tech? Like,
I found my co-founder.
what actually?
What happened?
Wrong?
So a lot of money goes into like slow development because they didn't have the instructions for how to do it properly. It was just me and the
too
tech
much
team.
time and money. That
A lot of time. Tech is like the biggest burn for most companies, and they were just building. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. It was a lot of time and money, and there was no one to manage that relationship. I couldn't manage it. I don't understand it deeply enough.
Yeah.
And that was the issue. But we changed it by hiring new people and bringing a product person.
So I was going to ask a little bit about the partner that you do bring in for that. Again, early days, if you're outsourcing that's totally normal, especially if you're not technical. Which, by the way, I think non-technical founders, they do have that advantage. If you're building a tech product as a non-technical founder, you might feel like you're on the back foot. But the advantage you have is that, linked to what we were just saying, if you are technical, you fall even more into that trap of building what you want, build it and they will come. So anyway, so going back to the partner that you've outsourced it to, how do you like vet that process? Because I know loads of people do like the offshoring, and you know there are some cowboys out there.
Referrals is referrals.
Yeah.
Your network is your net worth, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
You know, it really is referrals. Our best developers come from referrals. Our best people in the company come from referrals. In fact, it's all built from referrals. I think that's a startup thing. In corporates, it's such a different ball game. In startups, you don't have the time and money to outsource all this stuff. You have to be able to vet these people, and you do that through referrals. Understanding like, have you worked with them before? What's your experience?
Exactly.
Our best people come from that.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly. Because that's exactly what I'm thinking, where it's like they could have like a gorgeous website, they can give you the pitch and all the rest of it, but when it comes down to it, I've just seen that happen many times where it then breaks down.
And there's another point to mention here. Okay, outside of agencies, but if you're kind of hiring like a developer to work for your team, you have to think about it. You give them a time to prove. If it's not working, you just need to change it. There's no like shame in making changes to your team if it's just not working out. Like being really clear and upfront, saying that we're going to try out this process. I mean, we did that with most of our people. And most we kept on, but others we said, this isn't the right match. It isn't the right match. It's not going to work in the long term. The longer you leave it, the longer you stay in that relationship, we know how it ends. It doesn't end well. And you just waste more money. And I think for a lot of people, we delay the inevitable. We know it's supposed to happen. We know it has happened. We can't make that decision.
That's definitely a common theme on this show as well, where it's like I could have pulled the plug like a few months sooner. Just while we're on the product conversation, just really quickly, I just wanted to get your views. Have you heard of vibe coding with AI now?
Yeah, I talked to my product lady about that. She's all over it.
Yeah.
It's crazy what we can do.
Yeah.
I was just in a coffee meeting just now and was like telling my colleague about like AI and what we can do with it. If you're not thinking about how we use AI, then you're doing something wrong.
You're already behind.
One of the best decisions I made when I was getting some outside coaching is having a look at our businesses, doing like a 2-week time tracker. What is everyone in the team working on and how much time they spend on each of those areas? Putting that into ChatGPT, analysing what are the areas each person's working on. Okay, your work 30% is going on this process. That's too much. That's not giving us massive ROI. We need to change that process. You can then do that using AI.
That's an amazing tip.
Yeah. Do 2 weeks time tracking using like Toggle, understand what your team's working on, understand how long it's taken to do certain things. You can then analyze if that's a good return on investment for you. If it's not, you can change that. And this allowed us to then like speed up processes. Okay, we're spending this much time on this. Okay, what can we adopt to make this faster?
That's a great
game
tip.
changer. And this is how you keep like the employees low and the output high.
Keep things lean. Yeah. That's amazing. And it's so interesting as well, where I ask you the question based more on, the product and talking about engineers and developers and everything else. But of course, you've got those AI benefits just with the operations of any business, right? So that ChatGPT tip you've just given, I think is like applicable to like anyone.
Yeah. And there's tools at your dev team can use as well.
Yeah.
I would also be cautious if a developer only uses AI. It's very risky. You need to have, it's same with anything with AI. The person needs to be smart enough and experienced enough in that area.
Yeah.
Then AI is a tool to speed you up.
100%. You can't fully outsource it.
It's like a battery on a bike, speeds you up.
Yeah. Nice analogy.
Yeah, I just thought of that now, actually.
Nice one. Trish, I could ask you so many more questions. The time has flown. I've had so much fun. I hope our listeners are picking up on. I hope they're getting the third wheel effect. Yeah, they're just like vibing with us, just like laughing and chatting. Unfortunately, I need to wrap things up. So, traditional closing question: one tragedy that's taught you an unforgettable lesson.
Hiring the wrong co-founder. So before my wonderful co-founder, I had a different co-founder.
Oh,
yeah. Sorry to end on this note. And I guess I knew from the beginning it wasn't a right fit. And what you said earlier is absolutely true. We avoid the inevitable. I was desperate back then. And this is why I say from experience, I'm not perfect. I've made loads of mistakes and I share them openly with people. I was desperate. I made a decision and I felt it in my gut. I'm a gut person. Some people are head. I'm gut. I felt it in my gut. And I actually felt it so much I couldn't sleep on most nights. And you keep it going because you give people the benefit of the doubt. You know, not to make it work. And you're at like a really vulnerable point in your company. But eventually you have to make the right decision. So the hard decision, which is often the right one. And I did that. And thankfully, you know, stars aligned, whatever you might call it. And I met my co-founder now, but I knew it was an absolutely horrible time. It was just horrible. And that's why when I speak to founders and they come to me that co-founder breakup, I'm like, I get it.
Totally.
I know how, and also there's the whole legal side, but there's also, I know how you're feeling and it's not a nice thing to go through for anyone.
Well, I'm really sorry that you did go through that. I know how painful that is. And obviously very happy that you've come out the other end and everything's worked out. Now with hindsight being a wonderful thing, looking back on that, are there any key lessons you can share with the listeners in terms of like red flags, green flags?
I think it's the same with any relationship, by the way. How someone presents themselves at the beginning is who they are. You know, you can hope they change, they don't. And you have to be honest with yourself. Who is this person? What have they presented themselves to you as? Like that doesn't change. And you can hope and pray and give them the benefit of doubt. It usually doesn't make a difference. So kind of ask questions, get their feedback, and there's like loads of resources online, like the 50 questions you can ask your co-founder, and you know, see is that compatibility. Did they have the same values, alignments? Like, are they willing to go all in, or do they want it as a side project? Both are okay businesses, but one is a different business to the other,
and you need to be aligned on that.
You need to be aligned on what business you're running. Are you taking it to the moon, or are you taking it to the sky? Like,
that's really helpful. And I think what I would just add to that is it's the same thing as the product development, the product market fit we were talking about before, which is wanting to see something that isn't there, or even about all of these themes, right? Whether you're fundraising, whether you're trying to get product market fit, whether you're looking for a co-founder, we can I think a lot of the time we're not even conscious of it, right? But we want something so badly, we put those wishes or that vision that we have either of that other person or what the product can look like, and not really being fully honest and objective about the situation.
If you're feeling like you're in desperation, don't make the decision.
Yeah.
I think this, and I've really learned from this. Like, I don't do that anymore. Even my co-founder knows, like, we will never do things in desperation. We just won't do it. We'll get out of it a different way. Like, if you're feeling desperate in the moment, you probably know it's the wrong decision.
Yeah.
Because action on desperation is the quickest way to making a bad decision, in my experience and opinion.
Yeah.
And so now I'm really clear on that. Like, make money, don't take money. You know, these are the kind of rules I adopt in the company. I'm not going to be going chasing investment until I know how to make it. I'm not going to be going making decisions because I really feel like I need them. If it's right, it works out. If you force something to happen, it's always going to end bad. This is what I've experienced.
Trish, you're so wise.
No,
I love it. Thank you so much. This has been,
it's been amazing.
Amazing. Honestly, this has been even better than I expected. You've covered not only really practical, helpful tips. I think everyone, myself included, has learned something new, has taken something away with them, but also going deeper into these other fascinating topics around confidence, mindset. I definitely wasn't expecting all these more fun, kind of deeper topics. So thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Really great to have you. And thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this, you know what to do. Please hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening to this. Episodes are weekly, so I hope to see you next time. Thanks so much. See you soon.